Welcome to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. Here, we wander together into the woods to explore ourselves, the world around us, and the mysteries and joys of life through the tarot. I'm your host, Mari, a professional tarot reader and a musician. Grab your deck and off we go. Hello, and welcome back to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. If you are interested in having me do an intuitive reading on a question you have, please consider submitting it to the podcast. So you can email me at info@mariofthewoods.com, and you can keep the question really simple, like, if you're in a new relationship, I'd love a reading on the energy of this new relationship, or I'm changing careers and would love to get some guidance on that. So I don't need a ton of details. You can just kind of give me something simple that you want a general reading on, no yes or no questions, and I will do the reading live here on the podcast and answer your question. You can remain anonymous if you like, but of course you have to be okay with me reading your question live here on the podcast and giving a response. If you've been enjoying the podcast so far, consider leaving me a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or just subscribing and liking on YouTube. All right, thank you, and let's get into today's episode. Today, I want to talk about positive what-if questions. I first heard of this concept from Marie Manucherry. She's an amazing intuitive and an energy healer. I don't think it's necessarily her original idea, but she talks about them a lot. They are kind of like affirmations, but I think even better. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes when I try to work with an affirmation, I just don't believe it. So it doesn't feel as effective. Like, for example, if I'm trying to work in wealth or something and I'm saying things like, oh, I make a certain amount of money, or I am worthy and deserving of a great salary. It's like, I'm not quite there yet in my belief. And so there's something inauthentic about the affirmation, or something that just doesn't work, doesn't click. Health is a big one. Like, I had a knee injury fairly recently, and it didn't really work to say, like, my knee is perfectly healed and I can do anything I want, because I'm sitting there with like knee pain and not being able to exercise the way I want, which makes the affirmation actually feel frustrating. So when we add the words what if before the statement, it kind of shifts the energy a little bit. Like, what if I made a salary that I was extremely happy with? What if my knee heals completely and I can get back to all kinds of exercise? And then it shifts us into a place of imagination, of putting ourselves in that scenario instead of saying that it already is that way when we know it's not. Another thing with the positive what if questions, we go about our day thinking what if all the time, but it's usually bad things. Like, what if I don't get everything done? What if my kid gets hurt? What if I never accomplish my career goals? Things like that. What if I never meet a romantic partner that's the right fit for me? We think those things all the time by default to sort of our normal state. So the idea of the positive what if questions is we sort of do the same thing, but we intentionally make them positive. What if I meet the partner of my dreams? What if I find an amazing career that's fulfilling and pays well? What if I'm a great mom and my kids are perfectly safe? So it's sort of turning our fears on their heads and flipping into a positive, higher vibration. So I want to talk a little bit about what questions do to our brain. So questions cause a mental reflex where the brain pauses other tasks to focus on finding the answer or responding to the question if someone else has asked. So since it's a reflex, we don't really have much control. We hear a question and our thoughts sort of automatically move to answer the question. So that's why this is such a cool trick. because we sort of hijack our brain by asking a positive question and we force our thoughts into a more positive, uplifting place. Questions have a big impact. One study called Does Measuring Intent Change Behavior found that just asking about someone's intention to buy a new car in the next 6 months increased purchase rates by 35%. Another study found that asking someone if they intended to vote in the next election increased the likelihood that they would by 25%. So this tells us that simple questions can affect our behavior and our mindset and cause changes in our lives for better or for worse, of course. But using the positive what if questions, we're doing this for the better. After we ask the question, you want to notice sensations in your body, notice your imagination kicking in, thinking about what it might feel like. Notice how maybe your breathing feels. Maybe you've started smiling. I found this to be really powerful. So as I mentioned, Marie Manucherry, that's kind of originally where I heard of this concept. She has 2 card decks with literally just every card has a positive what if question. Mostly hers have to do with developing intuition. And she said on her podcast to leave the how, what, where, when, and why out of it, which I really like. So we don't allow ourselves to go into overanalyzing, thinking, processing. We just allow ourselves to experience the positive feelings and vibrations and thoughts that come after the question without worrying about the logistics. So just for fun, I'm just going to pull one of hers. I have her second deck. I don't have the first one, but okay, so this one's more focused on mediumship. She's also a medium. So what if my departed loved ones are easily seen and heard by me? What if my departed loved ones are easily seen and heard by me? So for me, I'm like immediately thinking about my grandma. It sort of like already feels like she's closer to me. The idea of it makes me feel happy. Like it's such a quick response to a simple question. Let's pull one more from her. This one is, what if all my psychic gifts are obvious to me? I think many of us using tarot or developing intuition wish these things were easier to access. So this is such a great one. What if all my psychic gifts are obvious to me? All right, so where does tarot come into this? In episode 3, I talked about using the cards to inspire questions. So now we're going to do something similar with our tarot cards, but specifically for positive what if questions. This is a great exercise to do if you're feeling like in a funk, if you're feeling a little bit stuck in victim consciousness. How do we know when we're in victim consciousness? When we feel like nothing's going our way, when we feel like helpless, powerless, like we can't change anything, when we feel like everything's happening to us and we can't control it. Like those are all good indications that we're sort of living in a victim mentality. So what's probably happening is we're reinforcing what's going on with negative what if questions, right? So our anxiety is getting the best of us. So that would be a great time to grab your deck and use your tarot cards to come up with some what if questions. You can also do it on your own, just with whatever your current fears are. But working with the tarot, again, I love working with the tarot because it's so creative. It makes me think outside the box. The imagery might bring up things that you weren't thinking about but are very effective. So let's grab our decks and do a little bit of practice together. Okay, so I'm just going to lay out 3 cards. And we'll consider some positive what if questions for each one. Okay, this is great because we got some cards that are considered more positive and some cards that are considered more negative here. I want to say that even the cards that bring in more elements of sadness or even trauma or anxiety, even those cards have medicine for us, have opportunities for healing. So it's not like you can't make a positive what if question from a card that's mostly a difficult experience. All right, so first card that came up here is the King of Swords. So this is a great one. The King of Swords is the master of the sword suit, right? So the master of intelligence, mental activity, thinking, discernment, communication. There's an element of confidence in that realm and also an element of like serving others within that realm. So one positive what if question we might ask is, what if I make difficult decisions with ease? Let's say we have a specific problem going on. What if I'm able to think through this issue clearly and come to a solution that everyone will be happy with? So you can see how you can also tailor it to like what's specifically going on in your life. So I can come up with general ones for the King of Swords, but you may work with it more specifically related to a certain issue you're experiencing right now. Let's think of one more for King of Swords. What if I walk through life with confidence in my intelligence and my ability to make decisions, or confidence in my ability to communicate clearly with others? Ooh, I've got one more. What if saying no is easy and I cut away anything that no longer serves me? Woo! All right, moving on. Okay, so the next card I pulled is the Four of Wands. The Wand suit is all about passion, creativity, intuition, instinct, action. And the fours, if we're getting a little bit into numerology, 4 is actually a number that has more to do with like stasis, of standing still, of stability. And so there's sort of a funny balance here where this is the one card in the wand suit where you're kind of staying still. There's not really movement. There's a canopy overhead and you're just for the moment sort of celebrating in this temporary home. So it is a card of joy, of celebration, of comfort, of maybe taking a pause on a really active journey and just celebrating, feeling at home. It's a lovely card. So let's think of a couple positive what if questions. What if I can take a pause from all the striving and celebrate this moment? What if I have a home where I feel safe, free, and am surrounded by loved ones? And in the deck I'm using, there's a cityscape in the background. So another one I'm thinking of is, what if I make time to escape the busy city life and get out in nature to nourish my soul and feel refreshed? The last card I have here is the Five of Cups. In the Five of Cups, we see someone standing over 3 spilled cups, looking down at it, crying, with 2 cups standing behind them. So this is a card that's typically associated with grief, with loss, with, depression, things like that. So the positive what if questions might be a little different for this one. I'm thinking of things like, what if I allow myself time to grieve the things I've lost? What if it's okay to spend time being sad about X, right? What if I can allow myself to feel all the feelings related to this loss and know that when I'm ready, there's wonderful things in life waiting for me? Okay, so hopefully you get the gist of using the cards to inspire positive what if questions. I want to offer a final 2-card spread where the first card is something that represents a place in life where you feel stuck. And the second card is to help inspire a positive what if question to help you get unstuck. So again, card 1, where in life am I feeling stuck? Card 2, something that will inspire a positive what if question to address that stuckness. All right. So I have pulled for myself the 4 of Cups, which is hysterical. It's like literally the stuck card. We think of this as like the boredom or the apathy card sometimes. And I think, oh God, for me, it's always hard when I go into myself on the podcast. I think for me, this is sort of like my tendency to never feel like anything is enough. It's like, oh, I've done all this stuff. I've got these 3 cups here, but like, it's just never enough. I've never done enough. This is definitely a mindset I've been stuck in for a very long time. And the 4th cup being offered that is also being ignored feels like not so much like an opportunity or anything that I'm not seeing, but a perspective that I've done so many wonderful things, and I have filled my life with things that are fulfilling and that my soul longs to do. And sometimes I ignore that perspective because I maybe haven't had the worldly success that I feel like I would like. And that would make me feel more validated, probably in a more ego way. So that's how I'm reading this card. And then the second card, which is to inspire my what if question, I got the 5 of Swords, which, oh my God, it makes so much sense. In this card, we see the aftermath of a battle where it sort of looks like everyone's lost. There's 2 people walking away in the background with their heads down. The figure up front is hoarding the swords that they won, but they sort of look smug and mean. It's a card that has to do with bullying. To me, this is like, what if I don't have to beat myself up about everything? What if my tendency to beat myself up is only causing more pain all around, and so I choose to let it go? Taylor Page, who does the Magic Hour podcast, calls that inner voice the inner villain voice, which I always really love. So I also want to say something like, what if I thank my inner villain voice for trying to protect me, but choose to set it aside and choose self-love? So I'm taking these 2 cards together as a cue to, not be so hard on myself, talk to myself in a loving way, try to catch myself when I hear that inner villain voice going, and just say, thank you, but I don't need you right now, that kind of thing. So I definitely encourage you to try this spread at home with your own deck and let me know how it goes. This is an easy one, just 2 cards to kind of pull yourself out of a funk on any day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Into the Woods. If you've been loving the podcast, please share with your friends and family who are into tarot, like us witches. I do offer professional readings, which you can book on my website, mariofthewoods.com. That's Mari. You can also find me on Instagram at mariofthewoods. All the editing, music, and artwork for this podcast was done by me, Mari. Have an awesome week and happy wandering.